Well, my testimony originally said good morning, but good afternoon.
Good evening.
Hey, it could say good evening.
Good evening, correct.
We're coming
I'm
up on
busy
that.
at this point. Madam Chair, co-chairs, and honorable committee members, thank you for the opportunity to come out and speak today. My testimony has been filed on opposition of HB 7170, so I think it will speak for itself. As a municipal leader, first selectman in a town, I believe that this attempt to reorganize the health districts are not going to be a fiscally sound move, and I believe you've heard plenty of testimony today on that behalf. However, I would like to speak on behalf of 5314, which you've heard and will continue to hear through the evening. I speak before you as a first selectman, a state representative, also as a father of two young people, and I have great reservations and concerns with legalizing marijuana in the state of Connecticut. And I'll lay out my reasons and I'll turn it over to my colleague, but I can speak on behalf of Representative Dela Cruz. He and I both share in a battle, and I will call it a battle, in southeastern Connecticut dealing with the opiate issue. And I have great fear that creating an opportunity for legal marijuana today without so many unknown answers could have catastrophic effects on the young people in the next generation. I don't think we have enough information from the medical professionals. For example, if you were to get pulled over today and you had got tested for marijuana, there's no way of determining when you actually had that marijuana ingested in your system. Those are questions I would have before I could even have a conceivable thought on this. Also, I would say that, are we chasing money here? Are we looking at this as a revenue stream and really not a move going forward? I have great concerns with that. I don't want to chase after a pile of money without having some real solid answers to these questions. And the last thing, before I turn it over to my colleague, is the financial piece. The federal government, from what I understand in Colorado, requires or will not allow for the monies to be deposited in federally insured banks if it's coming out of one of these facilities. Now, I might not be completely accurate, but most of the information we've been getting has been indicating that that is a problem in Colorado and across the country. So I guess I propose this is going to happen someday. It's a reality, but I think we're rushing into it today, and I would caution this committee to take the necessary measures to find out all the answers before we get into this. I'm not comfortable today moving forward. I would ask you not to do that, and I'll turn it over now to my colleague, Representative Dela Cruz.
You're going to hear a lot of the same stuff from me. I really think our group that we started, Community Speaks Out, my wife and I, we've been dealing with the epidemic of the opioid crisis. I don't think this is a move in a direction that's going to slow that down. There's a lot of different reasons, too, and I've heard the arguments for, and a lot of it is on the money side. And we have to remember that Colorado was the first, remember? And we had a first casino in Connecticut, too. And that one, when you have one that's very unique to a region, you're going to bring in a lot of money. And that's what happened in Colorado. I had friends personally that flew out there and vacationed there for 2 weeks or two or 3 weeks. And you're not going to see that now. So the numbers that we're using from Colorado, even on the money side for certain, are not going to be reflective of what happens here. The other person that I haven't seen in the room are our large employers. We talk about moving the state forward with having a skilled workforce, a workforce that can be productive and be good taxpayers. But Electric Boat, Sikorsky, none of those companies are going to come in here tomorrow and say, you know what, if a kid tests positive for marijuana, we'll still hire them. So what's the note on that? You know, there's going to be folks that can't get jobs now, and that's what I do every single day on the side with Community Speaks Out, trying to get folks jobs that are very unemployable because they've gone through these addiction issues. And oftentimes it's can you pass the marijuana drug test? And the answer is no. They're being trapped out of jobs that are defense-oriented, even all the way down to retail, where we're finding that they're doing that simple drug test just to determine if you can work for them or not. So that's the thing that the 18-year-old kid that is friends with a 21-year-old to start smoking doesn't take into account. They will be applying for a job at Electric Boat or Sikorsky in a short 3, 5, 6 months, whatever it is after high school, and they're going to be locked out. And what is the impact of that? That person who normally would get a job that's going to pay roughly $80,000 a year with benefits and everything else that go along with it will be someone that's mired in minimum wage jobs, possibly for the next 5 to 7 years, and maybe who knows what path that takes them on. So I do agree. I think this is probably going to be an issue that does pass years down the road, but why would we run? We have Massachusetts that signed up for it. We're going to have great evidence of what that does to your community and towns just in a few short years. So I'm prescribing to let's wait it out. There's no reason to rush. We do have a fiscal crisis here in Connecticut, but sometimes, you know, just like when you're buying real estate, if you're standing in line to buy a house and everyone's outbidding you, you're buying at the wrong time. And I feel like that's kind of what it is right now.
And thank you, gentlemen. Thank you both for giving your testimony on this legislation. We do appreciate it. Are there any questions? Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly, I wanted to thank you both for coming in and just make a quick comment that I think we had such a tremendous showing here today from the Southeastern delegation, bipartisan effort to come in and speak out on both of those issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam. Just a quick comment. I've never seen such great bipartisanship, I think, on this issue, on both sides of the issue. Representative Srinivasan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and thank you for being here. And as our good chairwoman said, earlier in the morning in a bipartisan way, we saw the power of 3, and now we're seeing the power of 2 later in the day. So something that you both said is that this will eventually pass, but obviously let's not run with it right now. So your suggestion for us as a committee to look at is, what is it that we need to be doing from here at this point in time till we reach the stage where we might pass it, whenever that is, 2 years from now, 5 years from, 10 years from now. Get your homework done, get everything all straightened out in terms of DUI and marijuana, the combination of the two, and take your steps, but take time in taking those steps. Is this what you would suggest for this committee to look at?
The way our country operates is we have, we have Massachusetts that we're going to be able to find out the errors and let them go through the growing pains. I think that Colorado certainly has pains over there, and a lot of folks on the other side, on both sides, you can argue it till you're blue in the face of the goods and the bads, but how's it going to affect us here on the East Coast, and what are the true dollar amounts? Because a lot of the argument is, you know, it solved Colorado's fiscal problems. You know, but I would have to say that we're not going to find that here in Connecticut because we're going to have, obviously, competition. And you're not going to leave Massachusetts to drive down to Connecticut to buy marijuana if it's legal here. So I think, again, we walk into this thing. We take our time. It's been illegal for 90 years. Why do we need to make it legal this year? You know, and that's the approach I'm taking, exactly how you framed it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Summers.
Thank you both for your testimony. Another bipartisan support against.
We took the gloves off. We were
right.
banging it out outside.
Okay.
Now here we are, friends
All right.
again.
They came to a détente. I wanted to ask you, I know, Joe, you were on the town council, and Kevin, you're first selectman, but one of the things that was brought to our attention that you actually spoke about in your testimony, Kevin, is, let's say you're a first selectman and you have someone who is operating a snowplow and unfortunately gets in an accident and kills somebody. And then we find that there's THC in their blood. There's no test to tell you whether that's current or past. So what does that do as far as legalizing a drug like that to open you up for liability?
Thank you for that question. And, you know, for the fact is, yes. And I will tell you, as we talk to our insurance providers, when we're talking about how we're getting into the next contract as I negotiate with our union workers, these are the things that come up all the time because this is a great potential for actually happening here. And how I would respond to that is I would rely on the medical professional, and you have a couple of great doctors there on this committee that can probably offer some advice on how we would do that. The way I understand, Senator, is that there is no determining when that was used. And so to me, that is the root of the problem here. We don't have all the answers. And I think that the folks that testified earlier, as we talked about the bipartisan, they did a phenomenal job. They had statistics. They had some really great information that I learned some things that said, wow, I hadn't looked at it from that way. And I think conceivably we could see this happening here, but we've got to get all the facts before we do it. I don't want to rush into anything. And to your point, Senator, that could be a serious issue. We could have, God forbid, a bus, we had a bus accident today, if you haven't watched the news, up in Canterbury. We had a bus versus a truck. Now, what if, what if that's the situation? And I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying, but what if it was? And so how would we handle it? I don't know.
And I think proponents of the bill say that, and I've talked to people that smoke, and they've smoked for a long time, and say, you know what, I could drive high. It's different than being drunk. I could drive high, and I can drive effectively high. And you'll hear testimony from that. And I would ask them if they saw the bus driver that their kids were going on to the bus behind a tree smoking pot before they got onto the bus, would they put their kid on that bus? And that's the question. Ask yourself that way, not how you feel in control. And if I'm high or drunk and driving around, I'm taking your life or whoever's on the road's life in my own hands. And I just don't think it's fair. So again, until they get that test, and I do agree that we're going to be there. But if a police officer can show up and put a little beam on you and say your THC level is above this, maybe I'm talking a different way right now. But right now, it's too up in the air for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I know you're under time constraints here, so
Thank you.
We thank you for giving your testimony before our committee today.
And thank you for letting me
very much.
piggyback with you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay.